Mercy.
Okay.
Mercy.
Okay. So let's make Chelek Dalet Perek Revi. Chelek Dalet Perek Revi. You have it?
Yeah,
B'Kriyas Shema u'B'Chesel.
yeah.
It's actually an excellent. This goes exactly what we're learning in the mornings. Exactly the
As
same
is
thing.
Amrit.
Okay. So Shtei Avodos Hutlu Oleinu La'avoid Lefonov Yizboch Yoim B'Yoimai. There's two different avodos which HaKadosh Baruch Hu has put on us to serve before HaKadosh Baruch Hu every day. Vehein HaKriya Shema v'Hatfilo. They are Kriya Shema and Tefillah. It's interesting. Of all these are two avodos which the Ramchal puts them together, even though the mitzvah of Kriya Shema has got nothing to do with being a tefillah.
Yeah.
Tefillah and Kriya Shema, even though they're not really, there's no connection between them. There's no connection between tefillah and Kriya Shema at all. There's a separate mitzvah, which is the mitzvah of Kriya Shema. The Rambam put it as a mitzvah sesei. There's a mitzvah sesei of Kriya Shema, which in essence has got nothing to do with the avodah of tefillah. Correct? Kriya Shema is a separate mitzvah deraisa. According to Moshe Shein, it's a mitzvah deraisa. It's the mitzvah of imunah. It's got nothing to do with tefillah. Nevertheless, the Ramchal puts them together. Shtei avodos hutlu aleinu. It's like they're a duo. They come together. The mitzvah, the avoid lefonav yizboch yom yom, vehein hakriya shema v'atfilo. Ubizman beis hamikdosh, hatmidim v'amusafim, which actually the tmidim and the musafim, which were in the beis hamikdosh, as they are the tefillahs today, are neged the tmidim and the musafim. But he calls it like this: there's an avodah of tefillah, which is against the korbanos, and there's avodah of Kriya Shema, which even though they're two separate things completely, but the Ramchal puts them together. V'ata nivoir inyono. Now we're going to explain what they are. Ha'achas hinei Kriya Shema v'inyono. That means we're going to start now with the Indian of Kriya Shema. With the Indian of Kriya Shema. Just to give you a 2 seconds understanding of why he puts tefillah and why he puts Kriya Shema together, is because the purpose of both of them is really a way to it's forms of Kabbalah's oil Malchus Shamayim. A Kriya Shema is the Kabbalah's oil Malchus Shamayim par excellence. Kriya Shema is the ultimate Kabbalah's oil Malchus Shamayim. But in essence, all tefillah is also Kabbalah's oil Malchus Shamayim. You know, the great example for it is, I once had a beautiful question. I mean, we believe we have a emunah shlema that Kodesh Baruch Hu knows exactly what's good for us. And in truth, we know that we don't know what's good for us. If we we'd all want all the luxuries of the world, but it ain't good for us. What's good for us is, and we believe be'emunah shlema that Kodesh Baruch Hu, whatever he gives us, is what we need and it's the best for us. And if he keeps anything back from us, the reason is because that's what is needed for me to get Olam Haba. That means HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who's mashgiach on every individual, knows exactly what he wants. If so, there's one of the most difficult questions is, what are we davening for? Not why we're davening. I know what we're davening. But what we're saying, again, an example. You daven for Parnosa. Ich verstehe nicht. He doesn't know what's good for you. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu's given you X amount of Parnosa, and no more and no less, that's what's good for you. So what am I turning and asking for? I know better than he does. Or chas v'shalom if somebody's ill. if somebody's ill. Now, that means if somebody's ill, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving him this illness because he needs this illness in order to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, correct? So what's he davening for? What's the purpose of davening? What's the purpose? עברית זה בסדר? אנגלית, תגיד לי, אנגלית זה בסדר? I've got to check if anyone comes in, if English is good for them. So what's the purpose of davening? Let me just I'll go over to עברית, because I don't know if I understand עברית or English or not. אז מה התכלית של תפילה? What's the purpose of davening? When I turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and I ask him for more parnasa, or I ask him for more health, what am I doing? He doesn't know what's good for me. He's giving me whatever I need. The teretz is, the whole of tefillah is really a way to be mitbatel to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's hachnoah. It's showing that your dependence in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That means it's a display of dependence in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's an acknowledgement that I am nothing alone. It's an acknowledgement all I am is what you give me. Therefore, when I daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and I ask him for all my needs, really what I'm davening is I'm saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I know without you I will get nothing. That means I know you're giving me whatever I need. But I want it, it's a declaration of acknowledgement that I know all I get is from you and nothing comes from me. So the whole of tefillah in essence is a hitbatlut, being bottled to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is the greatest form of Kabbalah Malchus Shamayim. What am I saying? I'm saying I am nothing without you. That's why, let's say tefillah, Shmoyne Esrei, which is the most important part of davening, So the lashon of the Rambam is you got to be mechaven the whole davening. So Reb Chaim asks, Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, Reb Chaim al Rambam, he says, I don't understand. I thought you have to be mechaven only for the first bracha. What's this kavana that you have to have the whole time? So he says the kavana you have to have the whole time is the kavana of being oimed lifnei hamelech. That means the essence of davening is a connection. The essence of davening is to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The way I connect is by A, understanding that I'm standing in front of him, and B, declaring that I am nothing without him. These two aspects come together to create a hisbatlut, a complete dependence between man and his creator. And that in that way, tefillah and krishma are just two different levels of the same idea. Krishma is the ultimate declaration. It's an edus that we know there is nothing without you. And davening is when I stand in front of Kodesh Baruch Hu and I say, without your panos, I know I can't get it. Without you giving me health, I can't get it. So they both come to the same idea, which was really the essence of korbanos. The Ramban says at the beginning of Parshas Vayikra, the Ramban says, what's the mahut of a korban? Korban was to lehit karev, to bring yourself nearer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When a person did an avera, they brought the korban bimkoimoy in the place of himself. But the whole of korbanos was to be mitkarev to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be able to come closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it's so much true that korbanos and tefillah are in the same vein, that if I'm not, that the Goin says in one place that the kavana that's needed in davening is the same kavana which the Kohen needed to do the avoid of the korbanos. Just as the avoid of the korbanos, if the Kohen did it and he didn't know what he was doing, it was worthless. There had to be a basic kavana. He could make a mistake. There was maybe a stomalishma, but there had to be something. So also the kavana of tefillah, says the Goin, is the same as the kavana of the Kohanim. That means, in essence, the idea behind all these things is one. The idea is a way to get yourself closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a way to be dovuk in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. These mitzvahs, the mitzvah of Krishma, we've spoken about this many, many, many times, that the Ramchal and all the Mukubolim, really, they understood that all the purpose of all the mitzvahs was really there was a goal to be achieved by all the mitzvahs, and that was to be able to be dovuk in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The what's it called? The Baal Shem Tov called it this Taryag Eitzes. It's like HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us 613 Eitzes how to become dovuk in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But all these mitzvahs are hechetimtzes. That means when you take a lulav, you don't know how you're becoming dovuk in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You don't know how you're becoming closer. It's not a logical understanding which tells me that when I shake a lulav, I automatically become closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All these mitzvahs, it's not the physical action which does it. It's the teitzah. There's a result. The tzivui of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's a result of it that a person gets closer and closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's what the Arizal writes in the beginning of his Sefer Eitz HaChaim, that the whole tachlis of the Brias Olam was for the Nivroim to become dovuk in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That was the ultimate purpose. But there's one mitzvah, which that mitzvah, in essence, the chefza of the mitzvah, is a maisa of dveikus in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That means it's not just an outcome of the mitzvah, but the action of the mitzvah itself is an action of connection. That is the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The way in which you connect is through tefillah. And that's why the Rambam writes, the chefza of the mitzvah, the Rambam writes, the mitzvah of tefillah is la'amod lifnei HaMelech. Reb Chaim Volozhiner writes in Nefesh HaChaim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us the most unbelievable matona. He gave us the ability to stand in his Daled HaMoisov. Ki'ilu, it's like HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a bubble. The reality of this world is totally disconnected from any connection in godliness, any physical connection to godliness. It's actually something which the whole of reality negates completely. Nevertheless, says Reb Chaim Volozhiner, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a metzius mechudeshet, some sort of reality which is out of the reality, something out of the three dimensions. Let's say a sixth dimension where you can literally touch Elokus, and that is what? The metzius of davening. When a person stands in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he is dovuk, he's oimed lifnei HaMelech. Ad kedei kach, the Reb Chaim Volozhiner says, and that's why the Sforim write at the end of Shmoneh Esrei, you have to go back 3 steps, because you're going back down to this world. You were in the Olam Atzilus. You go down to the Olam Abriya, Olam Yetzira, and down to the Olam Asiyah. That means literally, he calls it, that's a loshon which it's not, the Zohar already writes it, hispashtus hagashmius, a form of hispashtus hagashmius. That means the Maisa mitzvah of tefillah is, the Maisa is connecting with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what it is. But the ultimate connection is Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Why? Because Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad is what? It's a declaration that even though the world looks like there's some form of reality which exists outside of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because if the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu would be present, the omnipresence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu would be there in front of us, there would be no place for anything else. Because when you say HaKadosh Baruch Hu's echod, he's one, that's not just one of two. When you say echod, it means one means he is the totality of everything. There is nothing besides him. He is the only one. So Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokecha Hashem Echad is a declaration that even though it looks like the world is full of nifrodim, the world is full of individuals, the world is full of creations which seem to appear as if something else we exist, that means something exists besides God. I know it's not true. I know it's all one. That means that's the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted me to see it. It's a paradox of existence which cannot be explained. But we know ultimately, even though our minds can't grasp it, we know ultimately all is one, meaning all is him. When you say these words, you know what you're doing? You are including yourself within him. I'm actually saying, if I'd have to say it in English, I know I don't really exist. I know that I'm a mirage of existence. I'm like some sort of mirage, because I know the only existence where it exists is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the only thing that exists. How do I exist? Beyond my comprehension. But I know that to be true. So when I say those words, ultimately, what am I saying? I am him. There is nothing besides him. It's phenomenal. It's not even dveikus. It would be the ultimate dveikus. You know what the ultimate dveikus is? I really, my whole existence is only something which looks like it, but it's all God. It's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, Tefillah and Shema Yisrael are both mitzvahs, even though they're two different mitzvahs. If you look in the Rambam, Kriyishma is a separate mitzvah. There's a mitzvah of Kriyishma. And Tefillah, if it's a derais, it's a separate mitzvah. If it's a drabon, it's a different mitzvah. But it's not the mitzvah of Kriyishma. But they both come to one idea. The idea being, these are mitzvahs which the hefts of the mitzvah, if we speak in the language of yeshivas, the hefts of the mitzvah is the ultimate connection between man and human beings. Tefillah is the God enabling me to stand in front of him in his Daled Ames, and literally to have a connection to him within those Daled Ames. That's why, by the way, the Rishonim say that the most important machshava to have in davening is that I'm standing in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The minute I think about something else, I've disconnected. I've taken the plug out of the electricity. So tefillah is the connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through davening, which is a maisa of dveikus. That's what it is. Tefillah is dveikus, but Kriyishma is the dveikus par excellence, because it's a declaration that I'm saying, I know that all I am is him. It's not bringing me towards him. It's a declaration there ain't nothing else besides him. And therefore, ultimately, ani v'hu choda. Or in the Lashon of the Rambam, in the end of Moreh Nevuchim, Hashem imoi. Imoi doesn't mean just with him. It's he's within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The ultimate dveikus. The ultimate dveikus in the Lashon of the Zoya, it's called the ultimate yichud, the ultimate ichud. It's the ultimate declaration of oneness. That is Kriyishma. So therefore, the Ramchal, when he brings down These, when he brings down Tefillah and Krishma, it's all in Chelek Dalet. It's all in Chelek Dalet Perek Revi. He talks about Krishma and Tefillah, even though they're two separate mitzvahs, because the Ramchal wants to bring out one Yesoid. And that's really the Yesoid of everything. The Dveikus, the mitzvahs of Dveikus. And these two mitzvahs are the mitzvahs of Dveikus. Two separate ways how to connect to God. I can connect to God even though I'm a separate being, which is Tefillah, through Ispashtus Agashmias, like the B'chaim Volozhin says. Or I can connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu by what? By declaring it's all Him. Therefore, by the way, the Arizal writes, and is brought down in the Vilna Gaon and in others. When you say Echod, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echod, what should be your kavana? The willingness to be moise nefesh ad kedei moves. A willingness to die for the Emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In fact, the Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvahs, when he brings the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, yes, the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, they got to be moise nefesh if it's b'fahesia, for all mitzvahs, learns the Rambam, and if it's b'yechid, if it's not b'fahesia, b'fnei asara, only for the gimel averes chamurais. What's the mokir? Where is he learning from? Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Why? Because if the only real existence, if the only thing that really exists is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and all you are is a mirage of existence, again, I'm not explaining it because it's beyond any philosophical way of explanation. There's no logical way to explain this. It's the ultimate paradox of existence, that I'm here and nevertheless all is one. But if all is one and I'm only here for that one, in fact, my whole existence is only for Him, so obviously I have to be willing to be moise nefesh to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to willing to die. If you're not willing to die, Rabbi Isai, then you do exist. If there's any value to my life, that means if I stand up and I say, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, what am I saying? I'm saying, I know only you exist. Everything else, even though I can't understand it, and it looks as if it can't be, I know that only you exist. Therefore, there's the ultimate dveikus in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm dovuking you because you're the only thing that exists. I can only exist as part of you. There's nothing else. If that's true, if when you're being made this edus, you believe in it, then obviously you're willing to give your life away for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because that's what you've just said. He's the only thing that exists. Therefore, the Mesirus Nefesh, which the Arizal says, when you say Echod, you have to be Makabel yourself Mesirus Nefesh. It's not some sort of Kabbalistic idea. The fact that the Arizal writes it is only because the Arizal understood what you were saying. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, saying, really? I know I sound mad. I know it doesn't make sense, but I know I don't exist. I know that all that exists is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Efes zulosoi. Every day we say it. Ein oid milvadoi. Efes zulosoi. Efes zulosoi. The last thing that we daven every morning is we make a declaration. I know Efes zulosoi ein oid milvadoi. That is Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And therefore, to be misamist, to verify what I'm saying, there shouldn't be words. I'm makabel on myself to die b'mesirus nefesh for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the ultimate vekus. It's I think I once read in one of the Talmidim of Baal Shem Tov. He says, it's really interesting. He says, the more you do mitzvahs, the more you become row to be dovuk in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Correct? So he says, in essence, all your life you're working to make yourself exist less, not more. We have a completely wrong way of looking at it. We think the more we are, the more guf there is, the more geshem there is, the more we are. No, it's not true. The real me is the spiritual me. The body is only that which prevents me from bidovik and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The greater a person grows, in essence, he's giving more of an ability to himself to be dovuk in HaKadosh Baruch Hu by making his gashmis less and less. The biggest example for that is that the Ramchal writes in the beginning of Derech Hashem. He says, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu originally created the world, before Adam, the Chet of Adam Arishan, before there was sin in the world, he says there was no need for Tariag mitzvahs. Do you know why there was no need? He says because Gashmias almost didn't exist. Again, Gashmias and Ruchnias, those are the two sides. It's not good and bad. The fight of the world, or what HaKadosh Baruch Hu created, was Ruchnias and Gashmias. And Gashmias is really when a person, it says before the Chet of Adam Arishan, the Medrash says that Adam was Kasnus Oir with an Aleph. Kasnus Oir meaning there was almost no skin. It was just like he was a being of light who saw mitchilas oilam at seif ha'olam. Says the Ramchal there was no need for Tariag mitzvahs because if the whole spiritual realm was so weak, it was almost already a spiritual realm. There wasn't any physicality in the world. Adam Arishan made his Aveira and brought Chet to the world, and suddenly there was Gashmias. The minute the Gashmias was created, which is really that which negates Ruchnias, we needed 613 mitzvahs to deal with it. But what do the 613 mitzvahs do? Even though we don't see it in the eyes, they bring us closer and closer to being a spiritual realm and not a physical realm, to being a spiritual body and not a physical body. That's what we're doing. So actually, he brings from the Baal Shem Tov that all our life we work to what? To make ourselves less being, less physicality, but more spirituality. He says that's why you have older people who almost don't need to eat anything. I remember I once met somebody, Pshaya Goldschmidt. He was a dying in Tel Aviv. He died in Tel Aviv. So he was talking to me about my grandfather, Reb Gedalia. And Reb Gedalia died from cancer of the intestines. So he said to me he heard once in the name of the Rebbe from Peshizk, that the Rebbe from Peshizk said, he said he heard of him, he said that tzaddikim gedolim always die, a lot of them die from a machla of the me'ayim, because the me'ayim is where the me'ayim, or all that part there, that's the place where a person takes out all the bad stuff. That's where he goes to the toilet. So he says the last place in the human being which has real physicality, a tzaddik, where tzaddik spends his whole life cleaning out of his body. And cleaning, he might look physical just like you and me, but in essence, his physicality is dwemed less and less. But the last place where it exists is in the Ma'ayim, because that's where it has to be, because that's the place where the Tzoya comes out of. And that's where the tzaddikim die. It's always in the machla of the Ma'ayim. That's what we said. Interesting. So coming back to what we were talking about, the ultimate form of breaking, of kilo being mevatel all that gashmias, is Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. I'm saying even though I look like a human being and I have a body and I function like a body, but I know it's nothing. And ad kedei kach, that I'm willing to kill myself for it, to kill myself for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That means I am giving you the proof that my declaration is true by the fact that I'm willing to go and kill myself for it. So in the case, coming back, this is all in the first 4 lines of the Ramchal, that he puts together tefillah and kriyishma, even though there's 2 separate mitzvahs. But the common denominator is the 2 forms of being mitpatel to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. 2 forms of Maaseh mitzvah which are dveikus and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Either through spashtus agashmias of tefillah and declaring in tefillah, I know all comes from you, or in krishma where I'm saying there is nothing besides you. The oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is everything. V'inyan, okay? Let's carry on. V'inyan. Ki haboyri yisborach shemo himtzi b'retzoynoi nimtzoyim shoynim. Here the Ramchal is going to explain to us when, again, the Lashon of the Rishonim, the Lashon of the Zoya, the Lashon of the Medrash is always the tefillah of Kriyishma, not tefillah. The words of Kriyishma are, it's a declaration of Achdusa Yisborach. It's emunah in the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Echad. So now, I have to, before, what kavanah do I have to have when I say it? So I have to be all-inclusive. I look around me and I see all the hundreds, the millions of things which were created, the millions of nivroim, and all that looks as if there are other things besides God. And I put all this together and I say, all this, even though it seems to be contradictory to Achdusa Yisborach, Hakoil Echad. V'inyan, ki haboyre Yisborach shemo himtzi b'retzoynoi nimtzoyim shoynim. He's created different forms of nivroim, elyonim v'tachtoinim, higher forms and lower forms, ruchonim v'gashmim. That means elyonim v'tachtoinim is really, we talk about the planets and the sun and the stars, and tachtoinim would be us, the celestial, what's it called? Ruchonim v'gashmim, v'sidrom b'sdorim shoynim, v'nosan b'choik kol echod mehem lifoy pu'ulos v'laisos maisim. That means, listen to me now carefully. Listen carefully to understand what he's saying. Again, we are looking for that which seems to contradict the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we have to have this in our mind, and we say, we know it looks like this, but it's all one. So he says, so what do I have to look at? First of all, I have to understand, I have to think of all the different worlds, all the different nivroim. Also, I have to think about the fact that, let's say, this choik hateva. What do you mean choik hateva? You know, the four basic in physics. Let's take teva today. Today they're trying the whole time to put it into being one rule, but they can't do one. They haven't found yet the one general rule. But they've got now four basic rules which govern all the reality of all the physical reality of this world. Whether it's gravity, whether it's dark matter, whether it's white matter, all the different, these are the 4 rules. The 4 rules. Now, that in essence, straight away, seems, now we know HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs that. We have no question whatsoever that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs that. But he runs it in 4 different forms. That means the way in which he runs the world are through 4 different rules, 4 different hanhogas of Teva. Correct? So we've got, first of all the different worlds which seem to show that, which seem to negate the oneness of God. And then you have the hanhoga of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the Shem Elokim. Elokim is the hanhoga, the way in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. That's why the gematria of Elokim Aleph Lamed Vav Hey Yud Mem, and Teva are the same gematria. So Elohim, the Shem Elohim donates the way in which he runs the world. Also, that seems to negate the oneness of God. Because if there would be oneness of God, he wouldn't have to run it through 4 different ways. The fact that it's running 4 ways seems to negate the oneness. Says the Ramchal. ונוסם בכל כל אחד מהם לפעול פעולת ולעשות מעשים. להסגלגל בגלגולים ובסיבובים רבים בדרך שונים. The sun, the moon, the stars, and all these things are necessary for life to exist on earth. And all these things go in a certain fashion, in a fixed fashion, in order for there to be an ability to live in this world. And all these things seem to show that God is not one. If there'd be one, you wouldn't have to have so many different things, so many different factors, which are enabling life to exist on this earth. להסגלגל בגילולים ובסיבובים רבים ודרכים שונים כפי מה שפילגו חוכמוסו יסבוך כל אחד ואחד. אמנם, nevertheless, הנה הוא יסבורך שמוי השורש והסיבה לכולם. When we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, first of all, what are we saying? There ain't nothing which is done without you. We know you are behind the curtain, running the whole affair. And this, when I'm saying that Kodesh Baruch Hu runs it all, it can be understood. It's understood in 2 different ways. B'bchinas hametzius u'b'bchinas hapa'ula. What does that mean? B'bchinas hametzius v'hapa'ula. B'bchinas hametzius means even though I see millions of creations, nevertheless I know it's all you. That's Mepchinas HaPe'ula. Says the Ramchal. That's Metzius. Mepchinas HaMetzius, מה שכבר ביארנו בחלק ראשון. איך כל המציאוס כולו תלויים בו יסבורך, ונמשכים ברצונוי. מה שאינוי כן מציאוסוי, שהוא מציאוס מוחלט מצד עצמוי, ובלתי נתלה בזולוסוי. First of all, the first thing when I say Shema Yisrael is I know everything is dependent on you and you are dependent upon nothing. אך כל שעה מציאוס אין המציאוס אלא מצד מה שהוא יסבור שמו רוצה בהם ומקיימו ברצונוי. That's as far as the Nivroim. That means a declaration that even though there are millions, it's all you. It's all you, even today, not just like the philosophers say that you created them and then you let them be. No, it's you today. It's you today. That's as far as the Nivroim are concerned. B'bchinas ha'pu'ula, as far as his hanhoga is concerned. שאף על פי שניתן בחוקם של הנברואים לשלוט בעניונים מה שיכולתו מקפס. If you look around in the world, not only do you see that there are many, many nivroim, not only do you see multiple creations, but it looks as if these creations are running themselves. It looks as if these creations, these nivroim, they have their own capability to decide what to do and to do whatever. He says like this, שאף על פי שניתן בחוקו של הנברואים לשלוט בעניונים מה שיכולתו מקפס, ופועלים פעולת גדולות כל אחד כפי מה שבחוק פעולתו. You see the sun and the moon, sun giving light and the moon reflecting the light. And if Chas V'Shalom move an inch away, there wouldn't be. You see the sun doing an action, his own action. Hine be'emes ein be'em koyach v'lo shlito elo ma shemosa lono habiri yizvor shemoi. Shu odoin hamiti hashalit v'koil yachoil. V'chol ma she'em poyalim ein noi elo ma shehu yizvor shemoi nosan v'noisen be'em koyach sheyifalu. That means the first thing, he's going to go stage by stage. stage by stage, what has to go through your mind when you say Shema Yisrael. Now, the interesting thing is, we're not talking about any kavanas here, which are Kabbalistic. We're talking here about Posheta Halacha. The mitzvah of Shema Yisrael, says the Rambam, is to declare Achduso Yisborach. That's the mitzvah. The mitzvah d'oraisa, to declare Emunah in Achdusoi. The Ramchal's explaining to you the thought process. What should be going through your mind? So first level, I look around me, it looks as if I exist. It looks as if there's millions like me, and all this seems to scream that there's something besides HaKadosh Baruch Hu. B, not only the existence of mankind seems to negate the Achdus HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but also the fact that they do. Man does. Man has choice. Animals do. The sun does. There are rules for the teva of the world. There are things happening, and we are doing. We are doers. This is a world of doing. If anyone does something, that seems to be that there's something besides HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bein mibchinas the metzius, bein mibchinas the pe'ula. I know it looks like Elokeinu. It looks like there is teva. It looks like HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave of his koyach to us, and now we are in control. But it's not true. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. That's the first stage. The first stage. In Mitzvah Hashem next week will come to Oimek Ha'inyan. The second stage of thought. That means first you realize that the Metzius and the Pu'ulas, even though they look like they are separate from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all one. Then he comes into a deeper, and it carries on for 5-6 pages. 5-6 pages. I don't remember where I heard it from. An Adam Godler told me, anyone who understands the Ramchal on Krishma, he has the whole Torah of the Ramchal all in one. Because all the framework of existence, the whole perspective of the Ramchal on existence is all within Krishma. All within Krishma. And all this is the Kiyum Mitzvah d'oraisa. A gute Nacht to everyone. A gute Woche, a gute Nacht.
Du weißt, dass der Rebschei Goldsmith gewesen am Vetter?
Gewesen, nicht nur a Chushe v'Talmid Chochem, aber es ist ein feiner Geschmack. Every time. Nicht so, every time I met him, every time I used to